Okay, so finally, after like um about give it 2 hours of bashing my head against the wall and then load shedding, so now it's like 1 o'clock because the power's back on. I finally begun to cook with the AMD card. So basically, um I started my testing with just COD, just to get a rough idea of how the COD scaling was going, and I was noticing the same thing my friend was, which was, and a lot of YouTubers as well, which is the lower you drop the voltage, the V core, the better performance seems to be. Also, power limit does help because I tried negative 10% power to see what it would do, and yeah, power does. If you do drop the power, you do lose frames, obviously. So it seems like plus 15% power is good. Even on a reference card, my reference card is not getting warm. I think hotspot temp is ending at like 87 C at worst when it's max fan speed with a about 23 C ambient temp in my room. And yeah, my reference card is, it doesn't seem faulty. If I do have it vertical, but I don't know, but it's not maxing above 87 on hotspot temp. So my reference card seems fine at 400 watts, which is another fact I'm gonna get to just now. But yeah, the this card, I don't know, like it's weird. It's weird because the thing is, um, as I said, you can play something like COD with like 1050 millivolts, right? And you could clock the card up to like 3200 megahertz max. You leave minute 500, but you can do 3200 megahertz max. And you could do like, the memory, like my prediction, I thought that most chips would end at like 22 gigabits per second because it tends to be that um, they'll sell you a card with chips that can do like 22, but then they'll sell it to you at like 20 because for stability reasons, like heat, but also just like because the chips and they'll choose round numbers because it's nicer to say 20 than like 20.7. But yeah, so 20 is what it comes stock, but I reckon most cards would do 22. From day one, I gave my friend 2750 as a number for his clock, and it was, so it's 22 gigabits per second. And yeah, it works on mine too. It's pretty much standard. Pretty much everyone's card can do 2750, which is 22 gigabits per second. And yeah, like if you 2850, you get like crazy artifacting. So you know that the card can't do more than 2750. I tested this card's memory, like I watched it scale upwards in Speedway as I usually do, and yeah, so 2750 is good. Um, I used the settings I was using in COD in Port Royal, and I kept getting crashes. I kept getting crashes. I was like, what's going on? Because the thing is, I was confused, but then I started to realize something is going on. Number one, how on earth do I have two 8-pin cables, 75 watts from the slot, but my power draw is like 400 watts, and I'm seeing spikes up to like 450? How is that possible? AMD need to look at that because you cannot put 450 watts safely through a two-pin situation. You really can't do that. Like, okay, hypothetically speaking, right? Hypothetically speaking, the actual cable, right, can do 225 watts because you technically have the option for like a second head, right? Now I have modular cables, so I only have one head, so I don't exactly know how that works. It always depends on the cable's gauge. So I don't know if the single-headed PCIe cables that come with like modular systems, or like modular, individually sleeved like power supply in. I don't know if those single heads have the same gauge as the dual head standard like OEM cable. If it is the same gauge, then you could. Well, it depends, right? But if it's the same gauge cable, then technically the only stress you're doing is you might be putting more heat on the pins themselves. But technically, if the cable can withstand 225 watts with two heads, the cable's wiring can withstand 225 watts. The problem is that obviously now having more wattage going through the pins, or more accurately, like current and voltage going through the pins, means that having only 8 pins versus 16 total. Obviously, if you're going to use two heads, now you only have the one 8-pin cable that's now carrying, hypothetically speaking, let's say 235 watts going through that cable. Obviously it gets warmer, but yeah, that's all. Buildzoid says I think Buildzoid said he's used the, like a dual head design. I think Buildzoid's put like, I think he said he used like over 300 watts on one cable. So maybe I'm just crazy because maybe it's fine. Like, I don't know. Like Bulldoid might watch this video and be like, "Nah, dude, relax. You're being stupid. Like these cables can." Okay, then I'm wrong. But yeah, so but I'm seeing like max of 450 watts. I'm seeing regularly 400 watts on my card, on my board power, which is crazy because it's only two cables. So it's literally gonna be 75 watts off the PCI slot and literally like 325 plus, because obviously I said there's spikes, like 450 divided by 2. So literally there are times when my card is literally drawing the max wattage the cable's rated for, like 225 watts at like in like maxed out, and then like both cables plus the slot, which is crazy. I mean, well, oh no, actually I'm wrong. I'm being stupid again. No, technically both cables together, if they were 225 watts, is 450 already. Yeah, honestly, it's whatever. Like, I don't know, it's whatever. But like basically also, but yeah, it's strange. It's not meant to be that way. You shouldn't really be drawing that much power through the cables, but whatever, it's fine. If it works, it works. But anyway, the weird thing is that Port Royal requires a lot more voltage and a lot more well, no, just voltage. It requires a lot more voltage to stabilize a clock in Port Royal than anything else. So COD, you can benchmark at like 10, 50 millivolts, set max clock to like 3200. That you watch that thing clock to like 2950 in game in the benchmark. It doesn't crash, doesn't artifact. You just keep running the benchmark. You can game on it, whatever. You might crash like once every 2 hours. I don't know. But you can max it out crazy, like crazy low voltage, run the clock slider crazy high. And Port Royal, no, you're going to get punished immediately. Like, you will immediately crash. Like, in Port Royal, dude, I'm seeing like, I think I'm right now testing at like 1100 millivolts for like max clock like 2600 or something, dude, because literally like I can't run it like any higher. I keep getting crashes. And now that I've dropped it so far down, if it's finally starting to behave properly. Now, I've noticed in the past that when your clock is too high, you can start seeing artifacts in the benchmark or in game, whatever. So not just memory, like memory artifacts seem to be more like, more like weird stuff. When I clocked my memory too high, I was seeing like pink shading on the characters in the benchmark. So I knew the memory clock was way too high, and that's what I've seen in the past as well with NVIDIA and stuff. You see like everything just goes crazy, like like all the colors and stuff just go crazy, and you can just tell it's a memory issue. But when it's core, you often get these like weird artifact graphical glitches type deal, like geometry starts looking weird kind of thing. And yeah, so to get Port Royal to behave properly now, I've had to drop those clocks. Like, I mean, guys, Port Royal is crashing its stock. Like, I'm talking like no adjustment to the vCore or the clocks or the memory or anything. It's crashing its stock. To get it stable right now, I'm running 22 gigabits per second on the memory because it doesn't matter. That should work. And it doesn't matter because to get it stable, the clocks have to come down, like the core clocks. It's not about the memory. The core clocks need to go way down to get this card stable in Port Royal. I bet maybe if I drop the memory clock, I could get the core clock a little bit higher. But honestly, it's like, you're talking about like maybe 50 megahertz versus like 2000 megabits per second, right? So it's like, it's much of muchness, right? Like, yeah, honestly, I don't know. This card is weird. It's very weird. And this card is becoming like a thing, like almost like Raptor Lake, where it's like, what do you regard as stable? Because you could be playing games at like a certain configuration, but can you pass Port Royal 20 times? Like, maybe you can. It depends on your card, I guess. Depends on whatever. Like, but yeah, Port Royal was hard on Lovelace, but on this architecture, Port Royal is absolutely stupid. Port Royal is becoming like the Grim Reaper of like these, because Port Royal used to be pretty easy, I'm not gonna lie. Like back in Ampere, dude, Port Royal was chill, dude. Port Royal was so easy. Like on Ampere, you had to really worry about like Fire Strike. If you ran Fire Strike performance, I'm talking about like the 1080p one, and your card was like clocked like 2160, bro. Dude, bro, if you ran Fire Strike performance with like plus 200 offset, bro, your card's clocked into like 2160 megahertz, dude. It's crashing like in like fucking 30 seconds, dude. But if you run these Lovelace and stuff, I mean, you can get away with some really egregious settings, and like you could pass Fire Strike and no problem. You run Port Royal with those settings, dude. Oh my goodness, bro. Like Port Royal's load, whatever it does with the ray tracing and stuff, Port Royal is like, it's killing these cards. Like, dude, it's hard to run. Like, I'm not saying it's like hard to score in. I'm saying it's hard to run. Like, these cards are getting hammered, bro. Like, I don't think there's a game that does what Port Royal does. Port Royal is so crazy, dude. Like, from what I've now realized, like, compared to like other benchmarks and stuff, it's so hard. It's so difficult to do. Like, it's crazy hard. But yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't know. These cards are badly optimized, dude. I feel like the driver is not just buggy for some people, but the driver itself is badly configured. Like, this is not how your GPU should be behaving. Like, if you're crashing at stock, what's the first thing you do? You RMA. You're like, it's crashing at stock, time to RMA. Something's faulty. But no, the problem is that the clock behavior, it's just really screwy. Like, something is going on there. Like, the clock behavior is not correct. Like, something is up. I don't know what. That's I mean, that's and the whole thing with like the dropping voltage. If you want to know why that happens, it's because the card itself doesn't scale well enough with voltage, and it doesn't scale well enough with clocks. Now, if you guys recall, there was a whole thing, a rumor going around that like the first batch of like Navi silicon was like bad, like the silicon was bad or something. I don't know, but anyway, so basically, I think that's what we're seeing. I'm thinking the cards we have actually don't scale as well as they should with clock speed and voltage. And I'm pretty sure AMD will never comment on this, but it's probably true. I'm thinking that these cards, because my friend Morgan showed me too, he had his card like clocked very low and his card FPS was insane. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, how do you have your clocks down the floor and your FPS is higher? Like, that doesn't make any logical sense. Like, it literally doesn't make any sense. I said, how is that possible? Like, how do you show me a benchmark running so quickly, but your clock speed is like in the ground? Like, how? Like, how does that work? Like, where do you ever see that? Like, and I'm not talking like I'm talking like he dropped those clocks to like 2300, dude. Like, which is like below stock, well below stock, dude. Like, significantly below stock. And somehow he's getting like more what how is it even possible? So that really tells you like there's something weird going on, like inexplicable. I don't understand. But yeah, the scaling is terrible, dude, because if you add voltage and core clock, right, the reason why you're better off undervolting is because the amount of performance the card gains by clocking faster, like clocking the clocking the actual resistors faster, is not as high. In fact, it might be regressive, but it's not as high at all as what you gain by dropping the voltage and then allowing more current draw within the power envelope. Obviously, because everyone's card's got a BIOS limit. Obviously, no one's card, unless you find a way to power mod your card where like there's no limit. But basically, everyone's card who has a power limit, their card's performance is going to determine, like, as always, why we want, higher BIOS limits on NVIDIA is because you want to have more current draw, because the more your current your card can draw, the higher it scores, right? So if you're looking at Port Royal, like a 4090 or whatever, the 4090 with 480 watt BIOS is going to perform much worse than the 600 watt card or like the 666 watt, Galax Hoff or whatever. The higher power limit card's always going to perform higher. Why? Because it can run more current at the max voltage. And, and that means, the power goes up, but it's fine. It's got the limit, right? And then if you have to, drop that limit down on a card that has a lesser VBIOS limit, right? Now, all of a sudden, it means either your card's going to be hitting a very heavy voltage ceiling because there's too much current draw, so you can't clock as high, or, even worse is the card's drawing less current and it can't spit out as much performance. So, so on AMD side, if you have a higher limit, or on the power, on your AIB card, you're going to obviously go fast anyway. But to fix that on most cards is you just drop the voltage down, and then all of a sudden you get all this extra current headroom, and then you can just your card just performs much better because the clocking doesn't help. Like, the clock speed doesn't really affect it. Like, it's not really that beneficial. Like, so having extra voltage and having higher clocks is just like, so whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. In fact, I don't even think that dropping the clocks down really, having to drop them down is actually necessarily a bad thing. But AMD need to investigate and decide what's going on, because at this current point in time, dude, I don't know if I can recommend this card. Even being that I paid $900 for it, I just don't know. Like, this is not a good user experience. This is like a very, very poor experience for the end user. Like, really.